Concept of coordination in organisms. Coordination in organisms refers to the ability of different organs, systems, and cells to work together in a smooth and efficient manner to maintain the overall physiological functions required for survival. This communication and integration of various physiological processes are essential for carrying out specific functions, such as movement, digestion, and respiration. The nervous system and endocrine system play important roles in coordinating these processes, by controlling and regulating the activities of cells, tissues, and organs. Importance of coordination in organisms. Coordination is essential in organisms because it ensures that different organs and systems work together to maintain homeostasis, perform essential functions, and respond to internal and external stimuli. Without coordination, an organism may experience disruptions or failures in physiological processes, leading to impaired health, disease, or even death. For example, coordination between the respiratory and cardiovascular systems is important in delivering oxygen to cells and removing carbon dioxide, which is essential for cellular respiration. Coordination between the nervous and muscular systems is important for movement and response to external stimuli, while coordination between the digestive and endocrine systems is essential for digestion and metabolism. In short, coordination plays a crucial role in ensuring that an organism functions as a harmonious and integrated whole, capable of responding to the ever-changing environment and maintaining optimal health and well-being. Important terms used in coordination. There are several important terms used in coordination, which include 1. Homeostasis, the ability of an organism or system to maintain a stable internal environment despite changes in the external environment. 2. Stimulus, a change in the environment, which triggers a response from an organism or system. 3. Receptor, a specialized cell or organ that detects and responds to a specific type of stimulus. 4. Effector, a cell or organ that responds to a signal from the nervous or endocrine system to carry out a specific function. 5. Feedback mechanism, a process in which a change in a system triggers a response that counteracts the change and helps maintain homeostasis. 6. Nervous system, a complex network of cells and organs that coordinates and regulates the activities of the body through electrical and chemical signals. 7. Endocrine system, a system of glands that produce and secrete hormones that regulate various physiological processes in the body. 8. Reflex, a rapid, automatic response to a stimulus that does not involve conscious thought or decision-making. Types of stimuli. There are different types of stimuli that can trigger a response in organisms. Here are some of the most common types of stimuli. 1. Environmental stimuli. These are external stimuli that come from an organism's environment, such as light, temperature, sound, gravity, or touch. 2. Chemical stimuli. These are chemical substances in an organism's environment that can trigger a response, such as scent, taste, or the presence of toxins. 3. Electrical stimuli. These are electrical signals that can trigger a response in organisms, such as those produced by other cells or by electrical sources in the environment. 4. Mechanical stimuli. These are physical forces that can trigger a response in organisms, such as pressure, vibrations, or stretching. 5. Internal stimuli. These are stimuli that arise within an organism's body, such as changes in blood pressure, pH levels, or hormone levels. Organisms have evolved various mechanisms to detect and respond to different types of stimuli, including specialized cells, tissues, organs, and physiological pathways. The ability to sense and respond to stimuli is critical for an organism's survival and adaptation to its environment. Nervous coordination in humans. Nervous coordination in humans involves the transmission of electrical and chemical signals through the nervous system, which consists of the brain, spinal cord, and peripheral nerves. The nervous system is responsible for coordinating and regulating many physiological processes, including sensory perception, movement, thought, emotion, and behavior. Here are the basic steps involved in nervous coordination in humans. 1. Sensory reception. The nervous system receives input from sensory receptors, specialized cells or organs that detect specific types of stimuli, such as light, sound, touch, or chemical substances. 2. Signal transmission. Once a stimulus is detected, sensory neurons transmit electrical signals, called action potentials, along their axons towards the central nervous system. 3. Central processing. In the brain and spinal cord, the incoming signals are processed and integrated with other information from past experiences and higher cognitive functions, such as memory, emotion, and decision-making. 4. Motor response. If a response is required, the brain sends out motor signals through motor neurons that stimulate muscles or glands to carry out an action, such as moving a body part or secreting a hormone. 5. Feedback mechanism. After the response is carried out, the nervous system receives feedback through sensory receptors to evaluate the effectiveness of the response and make further adjustments if necessary. Overall, the human nervous system is a complex and sophisticated system that allows for rapid and precise coordination of physiological processes, behavior, and adaptation to the environment. Neurons. Neurons, also known as nerve cells, are specialized cells that transmit and process electrical and chemical signals in the nervous system. They are the fundamental building blocks of the nervous system and are responsible for carrying out important physiological functions, such as sensing stimuli, processing information, and coordinating responses. The structure of a typical neuron includes 1. Cell body, soma, the main part of the neuron that contains the nucleus and other organelles. 2. Dendrites, branching extensions that receive incoming signals from other neurons or sensory receptors. 3. Axon, a long, thin projection that carries outgoing signals away from the cell body towards other neurons or effectors such as muscles or glands. 4. Terminal branches, the end of the axon that contains neurotransmitters, which are chemicals that transmit signals across the junction between neurons and other cells. Neurons are classified into different types based on their structure, function, and location in the nervous system. Some of the most common types include 1. Sensory neurons, transmit signals from sensory receptors to the central nervous system. 2. Interneurons, connect neurons within the central nervous system and allow for complex information processing and integration. 3. Motor neurons, transmit signals from the central nervous system to muscles or glands to carry out a response. Neurons are the key players in nervous coordination and are responsible for the remarkable abilities of the nervous system, such as learning, memory, perception, and conscious awareness. Sensory neurons. Sensory neurons, also known as afferent neurons, are a type of nerve cell that transmits sensory information from sensory receptors, such as in the skin, eyes, ears, or nose towards the central nervous system, brain, and spinal cord. Sensory neurons are specialized to detect different types of stimuli, such as light, heat, pressure, chemicals, or sound waves, and convert them into electrical signals that can be transmitted along their axons to the brain or spinal cord. Sensory neurons are typically unipolar, meaning they have a single axon with two branches, the peripheral branch that receives input from sensory receptors and the central branch that transmits the information to the central nervous system. Once the sensory information reaches the central nervous system, it is processed and integrated with other information from past experiences and different sensory modalities to form a conscious perception of the environment. This perception can then guide motor output and behavior. Overall, sensory neurons play a critical role in allowing humans and other animals to sense and respond to their surroundings, allowing for survival and adaptation in a wide range of environments. B. Relay neurons. Relay neurons, also known as interneurons or association neurons, are a type of nerve cell that relay information between sensory neurons and motor neurons or between other relay neurons in the central nervous system. Relay neurons are responsible for integrating and processing information from multiple sources and coordinating appropriate responses. They help facilitate communication between different regions of the brain and spinal cord, allowing for complex reflexes and behaviors. Relay neurons are typically bipolar or multipolar, meaning they have multiple dendrites and a single axon. They can form complex networks with other neurons, allowing for information to be integrated and processed through multiple pathways. Some examples of the functions of relay neurons include reflex arcs. Relay neurons in the spinal cord allow for rapid and automatic responses to sensory stimuli, such as pulling away from a hot stove. Perception and cognition. Relay neurons in the brain process information from multiple sensory modalities and integrate it with past experiences to form perceptions and thoughts. Memory and learning. Relay neurons in the hippocampus and other regions of the brain are involved in the formation and storage of memories. Overall, relay neurons play a critical role in allowing humans and other animals to make sense of the world around them and respond appropriately to changing circumstances. C. Motor neurons. Motor neurons are a type of nerve cell that transmits signals from the central nervous system, brain or spinal cord, to muscles or glands, allowing for voluntary or involuntary movements and secretions. Motor neurons are responsible for controlling muscle contraction, skeletal movement, and the secretion of some glands. They receive input from other neurons in the central nervous system and integrate that information to produce appropriate motor output. Motor neurons can be classified into two main types: upper motor neurons, UMs, and lower motor neurons, LMNs. UMs originate in the brain and synapse onto LMNs that are located in the spinal cord or brainstem. LMNs directly innervate muscles or glands in the body. Lesions or damage to motor neurons can lead to various motor problems, such as weakness or paralysis of muscles, loss of muscle tone, or abnormal reflexes. Diseases that affect motor neurons, such as amyotrophic lateral sclerosis (ALS), can result in progressive muscle weakness and atrophy. Overall, motor neurons play a critical role in the control of movement and other physiological functions, allowing humans and other animals to interact with their environment and carry out daily activities. Structural parts of nerve cells. Nerve cells, also known as neurons, have three main structural parts. 1. Cell body. This is the main part of the neuron that contains the nucleus and other organelles responsible for carrying out the metabolic processes necessary for cellular function. 2. Dendrites. These are small, branched extensions that originate from the cell body and receive signals from other neurons or sensory receptors. Dendrites contain receptors that recognize neurotransmitters released by other neurons and can generate electrical signals in response to those neurotransmitters. 3. Axon. This is a long, slender extension that originates from the cell body and carries signals away from the neuron to other neurons or target cells. The axon may be covered by a myelin sheath, a fatty layer that insulates the axon and allows for faster signal transmission. In addition to these three main parts, neurons may also have synaptic terminals. These are small swellings at the end of the axon that release neurotransmitters to communicate with other neurons or target cells, such as muscles or glands. Nodes of Ranvier. These are gaps in the myelin sheath that occur at regular intervals along the axon, allowing for faster signal transmission. Axon collaterals. These are smaller branches that originate from the main axon and allow for the neuron to communicate with multiple target cells. Overall, the unique structure of neurons allows for the transmission of electrical and chemical signals throughout the nervous system, enabling communication and coordination between different parts of the body. Adaptations of neurons. Neurons, also known as nerve cells, have a number of adaptations that allow them to effectively transmit electrical and chemical signals throughout the nervous system. Some of these adaptations include 1. Dendritic spines. These are tiny protrusions that grow from dendrites, and they serve to increase the surface area available for receiving synaptic inputs from other cells. Neurons with lots of dendritic spines are better able to integrate input from multiple sources and make more precise computations. 2. Axon collateral branches. Neurons can extend smaller branches off of their main axon to connect with multiple target cells. This allows for communication with multiple cells at once, permitting greater information processing capacity. 3. Myelin sheaths. The axons of some neurons are covered by a fatty insulation called myelin, which allows for faster and more efficient electrical signal transmission. This is because the myelin sheath prevents the dissipation of the electrical signal between nodes of Ranvier, which are breaks in the myelin that accelerate the signal. 4. Synaptic boutons. These are specialized structures at the end of axonal branches that form synapses with other neurons or target cells such as muscles or glands. Synaptic boutons allow for the release of neurotransmitters, which can either excite or inhibit the activity of the postsynaptic cell. 5. Refractory periods. After firing an action potential down the axon, a neuron enters a brief refractory period during which it will not fire another action potential. These periods help to regulate the timing and frequency of signal transmission in the nervous system. Overall, these adaptations allow for efficient and effective communication between neurons and the rest of the body, representing a key aspect of neural function. The synapse. A synapse is a junction between two neurons or between a neuron and a target cell, such as a muscle or gland cell. Synapses are where signals are transmitted within the nervous system, allowing for communication and coordination between different parts of the body. At a chemical synapse, the presynaptic neuron releases neurotransmitters, which are chemical messengers that bind to receptors on the postsynaptic neuron or target cell, causing a response. The presynaptic axon typically ends in a specialized structure called a synaptic terminal or bouton, which contains vesicles filled with neurotransmitters. When an action potential reaches the presynaptic terminal, it causes the vesicles to fuse with the presynaptic membrane and release their contents into the synaptic cleft, the small gap between the presynaptic and postsynaptic membranes. The neurotransmitters then diffuse across the synaptic cleft and bind to receptors on the postsynaptic membrane or the target cell. The binding of neurotransmitters to their receptors can cause the opening or closing of ion channels in the postsynaptic membrane, leading to a change in the membrane potential and, potentially, the generation of an action potential. There are also electrical synapses, which allow direct electrical communication between adjacent neurons through gap junctions. At an electrical synapse, ions can flow directly from one neuron to another, allowing for faster signaling, although this kind of communication is less common in the brain. In summary, synapses are the key sites of communication between neurons and the rest of the body, allowing for the transmission of both electrical and chemical signals. Structure of a synaptic knob. A synaptic knob, also known as a synaptic terminal or bouton, is the specialized structure at the end of a presynaptic axon that forms a synapse with a postsynaptic neuron or a target cell such as a muscle or gland. The synaptic knob has several key structural features that allow it to release neurotransmitters and transmit signals to the postsynaptic neuron or target cell. These include 1. Synaptic vesicles. These are small membrane-bound sacs that contain neurotransmitter molecules. When an action potential reaches the synaptic knob, the synaptic vesicles fuse with the presynaptic membrane and release their contents into the synaptic cleft. 2. Presynaptic membrane. This is the membrane surrounding the synaptic knob that contains voltage-gated ion channels. When an action potential reaches the presynaptic membrane, these ion channels open, allowing calcium ions to enter the knob and trigger the release of neurotransmitters from the synaptic vesicles. 3. Mitochondria. These are organelles that provide energy to the cell and are important for maintaining synaptic function. Mitochondria are often abundant in synaptic knobs to support the high metabolic demands of neurotransmitter release and recycling. 4. Active zones. These are regions of the presynaptic membrane that are specialized for neurotransmitter release. They contain large complexes of proteins that are involved in the docking and fusion of synaptic vesicles with the presynaptic membrane. 5. Synaptic cleft. This is the narrow gap between the presynaptic and postsynaptic membranes where neurotransmitters are released and bind to receptors on the postsynaptic membrane or target cell. Taken together, these structures allow for the efficient release and transmission of neurotransmitters across the synapse, representing a crucial aspect of neural signaling and communication. Neuromuscular junction. The neuromuscular junction, NMJ, is a specialized synapse formed between a motor neuron and a skeletal muscle fiber. It is responsible for the transmission of signals from the nervous system to the skeletal muscles, leading to muscle contraction and movement. At the NMJ, the motor neuron releases the neurotransmitter acetylcholine H into the synaptic cleft, which binds to nicotinic H receptors on the sarcolemma, cell membrane, of the muscle fiber. This binding activates ion channels on the receptors, leading to an influx of sodium ions into the muscle fiber and depolarization of the sarcolemma. This depolarization spreads along the sarcolemma and deep into the muscle fiber through a network of T-tubules, transverse tubules. The T-tubules activate voltage-gated calcium channels in the adjacent sarcoplasmic reticulum, a specialized organelle in skeletal muscle. Calcium ions are then released from the sarcoplasmic reticulum, leading to the contraction of the muscle fiber. The NMJ plays a critical role in movement and voluntary control of skeletal muscles. Disruption of the NMJ can lead to various neuromuscular disorders, such as myasthenia gravis and Lambert-Eaton myasthenic syndrome. Review questions. 1. Name the chemical transmitter substances at synapses. The chemical transmitter substances at synapses are neurotransmitters. Some examples of neurotransmitters include acetylcholine, dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, gamma-aminobutyric acid, GABA, and glutamate, among others. 2. State the function of the following. A. Schwann cell. B. Acetylcholine. A Schwann cells are a type of glial cell that myelinate axons in the peripheral nervous system PNS, forming the myelin sheath. The myelin sheath provides insulation around the axon, which allows for faster conduction of electrical impulses along the axon. Schwann cells also play a role in nerve repair and regeneration. B-acetylcholine H is a neurotransmitter found in both the central nervous system CNS and peripheral nervous system PNS. In the PNS, H is the primary neurotransmitter responsible for muscle contractions at the neuromuscular junction, NMJ. In the CNS, H serves various functions, including attention, learning, memory, and regulation of the sleep-wake cycle. 3. How are the following parts of a neuron adapted to their function? A. Myelin sheath. B. Dendrites. C. Nodes of Ranvier. A myelin sheath is a fatty insulation layer formed by glial cells that wrap around an axon. The myelin sheath increases the speed of neural impulses by allowing the electrical signals to jump quickly from one node of Ranvier to the next. Additionally, myelin sheath protects the axon from damage and degeneration. B. Dendrites are thin branching structures that extend from the cell body of a neuron. They are covered with neurotransmitter receptors, which allow them to receive chemical signals from other neurons. Their tree-like structure and large surface area make them well suited for receiving input from multiple sources and for integrating signals before transmitting them to the axon. C. Nodes of Ranvier are small gaps in the myelin sheath along an axon. They are rich in ion channels that enable the rapid exchange of ions across the cell membrane. This allows for the efficient propagation of action potentials along the axon, as electrical signals jump from node to node via a process called saltatory conduction. Nodes of Ranvier also play a role in regulating the regeneration of axons after injury. 4. Define the following terms. A. Nerve impulse. B. Synapse. A nerve impulse, also called action potential, is an electrical signal that travels along the length of a neuron's axon. The impulse is generated when an electrical signal reaches the neuron cell body and causes a temporary reversal in the polarity of the cell membrane. This generates a wave of depolarization that moves down the axon, enabling the neuron to communicate with other neurons or muscle cells. B. Synapse is the small gap between neurons or between a neuron and a target cell, such as a muscle cell or gland. Chemical or electrical signals are transmitted across the synapse, allowing neurons to communicate with one another and with other cells in the body. The presynaptic neuron releases neurotransmitters into the synapse, which diffuse across the gap and bind to specific receptors on the postsynaptic cell, triggering a response in the target cell.